Okay, guys. So if you had a choice and you could bring one team from south of the border up to be in the Canadian division, who are you thinking and why? Pilon?
Ooh.
I'll go.
One team.
I'll go with the Chicago Blackhawks because we need another team that we can just run over and get as many points against as we can.
Hey, they had a big showing last game. Big showing, 6 goals.
Did they? I didn't see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow,
just
they're
when
still
you count 'em
bad.
out.
Sunjay?
One good game doesn't excuse the fact they're bad.
True,
Oh,
true.
For me, I'm gonna have to go with. Oh, that's a good question. And you know what? I'm gonna go with Minnesota because they kind of are like Canada, Minnesota, and they're close to Winnipeg. So you got that close rivalry. And you know what? They have exciting young players for once, so it'd be nice to see a little bit more of them.
Isn't that so funny to say Minnesota has exciting new players? Exciting players. That's just totally new to me.
Yeah,
It does.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
I haven't been excited about Minnesota since Suter and Parise first joined them.
I remember
30
having
years
season
ago.
tickets. Our hockey team won season tickets to the Flames, and every time Minnesota was in, everyone would just be like, I don't want to go. Like, do you want to go? And I was like, yeah, like it's still hockey. And this was like back in like 2002. So like it wasn't like great hockey, but it was still like an NHL
hockey.
game. Yeah, exactly.
Your brother and I went and saw the Flames versus Wild, and I think it was 2 years ago, and I think it cost us $20 for our ticket to go.
Yeah.
And it was near the end of the season. It was snowing, and easy game to attend.
You have to love going to those games where a lot of people don't want to go to because there's always some sort of enticement to get fans in. Like Baron, when we went to see the Arizona Coyotes for your bachelor party way before COVID, I got free food and drinks for the one game. So
That's unreal.
I was very happy.
That's right. So did somebody else that was at that game, but I don't think they had the same credentials that you had on the wrist at the time.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say that my team, I'm going to choose the Buffalo Sabres because I think they're as close to a Canadian team that's in the U.S. as possible. Plus, I also think, once again, there's a good chance you might be able to beat them more than the other teams, even though they got one hell of a lineup. And I think that's a great way to start the episode. We're going to start off this episode with essentially the biggest news in the hockey world. Adam is not a part of this episode. So everyone, let's just take that time, really enjoy the fact that
enjoy this episode. Yeah. Enjoy it.
It's not going to have that freezing face where his face freezes like this or anything like that. And we're like, Adam, are you there? And he's like,
maybe in honor of Adam, we can just randomly freeze ourselves in the middle of the podcast.
Exactly.
That's what I think about.
Yeah. Well, I think they should trade. You guys hear me?
About to
you
say
guys
something nice about
Although
Calgary.
Adam usually does the blue steel. It's just like.
Yeah. The best part is that he's not going to know we've done this because he's missing all this. And so when he listens to the episode, he's just going to have to hear us just go into town here for the next little while.
We're going to hear about it in his Willy
He says
Wonka.
he's upgrading his Wi-Fi, so hopefully it's a little better in the future.
Well, I think this is a great time to talk about some of the hottest events in hockey, specifically the big news, which is something that almost never occurs anymore, is a trading of superstars. We have Patrick Laine leaving the Winnipeg Jets along with Ross Lurick to join the Columbus Blue Jackets in return for Pierre-Luc Dubois. This is a huge trade in the hockey world where it's essentially you have the guys who went 2 and 3 in the same draft, and that year was 2017, I want to say. Is that right?
2016.
2016? Okay, 2016. Yeah, that makes sense. So the guys who went 2nd and 3rd overall in 2016 get traded for each other, plus a 3rd and Roslovic going the other way. Just some stats for you guys before we start this conversation. Dubois has 66 goals and 159 points in 239 games. He has $5 million owed to him this year and next year. He's under contract 1 more year, and he has arbitration rights. Patrick Laine, on the other hand, has 140 goals, 110 assists, In 306 games, he's owed $6.75 million as a cap hit. He's actually owed more in cash than that. And 26% of this was retained, but he does not have a contract beyond this year. Let's break down this contract. Let's break down this trade. A contract trade. Pilon, why don't you take the stance of the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Sunjay, you're going to be the Winnipeg Jets. Pilon, tell me why this is a win for the Blue Jackets, and then when you're done, Pilon or Sunjay, I want to hear why this is a win for the Jets. Go ahead, Pilon.
Well, I actually do think Columbus won this trade, and a lot of people who are going to say otherwise are going to say that Laine can't play defense. He's not a good two-way forward. But the thing is, you can teach good defensive play, but the thing that you can't teach is elite goal scoring, and that's what Patrick Laine can do. He can score goals. He can score 30 goals in his sleep. Dubois has yet to achieve a 30-goal season. Laine has a 44-goal season under his belt. Do you guys know how many 40-goal scorers there were the last time we had a full season?
2?
There were more than that. So it doesn't sound as impressive.
You idiots.
The last time there was a full season, there were 13 40-goal scorers.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when you look at how many players there are in the NHL, right? I mean, that's an elite number that Patrick Laine is part of. And he's only 22 years old. So I can see him getting up to 50 goals, when he gets up to his peak. And that's the reason why Columbus won this trade before I even get into the cherry on top. So Laine is the elite goal scorer. And because of that, he can do something Dubois cannot do. The cherry on top is then they got a former first-round draft pick in Jack Roslovic and only had to give up a third-round pick back. So there's your cherry on top to complete this lopsided trade.
All right, Sunjay with the rebuttal. Why is it a win for the Winnipeg Jets?
This is going to be tough. But so they are getting an elite player in Dubois back, and they're solidifying their center position. We all know in the NHL, centers really drive the play. They got Scheifele as number 1, and now Dubois as number 2. That's elite, 1-2 punch in center ice. And they are getting some cap relief. So next year, Laine would probably be costing $8 million, $7.5 million per season. So they're going to get some cap relief there. And I think Stastny's $7 million comes off the books as well. So you got $14.5 million to play with there. And Roslovic, who said, he was never going to play in Winnipeg again. So they kind of just dumped his salary. And if you look at how the Jets are playing right now, they're playing pretty good. They lost a heartbreaker last night, but you got to remember that's on the back-to-back nights, and they were playing their backup goalie, but they're still they're in a playoff position, and that's with Laine being out, and that's with Roslovic not playing. So you add in Dubois, and all of a sudden the team's better, and they're already in a playoff spot, and they gave up a lot, but I think Dubois, he's going to reach his potential. Sometimes players just need a change of scenery. To give you an example, I'm Calgary biased, but Elias Lindholm, before he came to Calgary, I would look at his stats and be like, okay, he did okay in Carolina. I wasn't expecting much. He came into Calgary. He's now, in my opinion, the number 1 center in Calgary, and top 2 forward on the team. And he just needed that change of scenery and more elite players to play with him because he wasn't getting that in Carolina. And hopefully Dubois, he can get that in Winnipeg because Winnipeg has a plethora of good forwards.
Ooh, a plethora. I like that. It's interesting because to me, when I see this right off the bat, my first thoughts were, my gut reaction was, this is a loss for Winnipeg. And the reason why I say it's a loss, as I wear my Laine jersey, purchased from River City Sports in Winnipeg. They have a sale. Nice. Since the summer, everything's been 50%. That's Patrick Laine has been 50% off.
They knew insider
trading. They knew. As soon as they heard a trade rumor, they were like, we're selling our stuff.
Yeah, we've been through this before.
And I think I sent it to you today, which was the True North store selling the jerseys for 50% off 2 Pro Stitch. So you can get a Patrick Laine jersey with the Jets. Pretty good deal right now. Besides the point, like my gut reaction is this is a loss for Winnipeg, because you're giving, as Pilon pointed out, you're giving up someone who is a 30 to 40 goal scorer who has not reached his potential yet, who is like elite talent. And the last time that they traded away a Finnish forward who scored like this really did not pay off well for Winnipeg. Like that, their trade histories of big players are pretty hit and miss for the most part. So this was kind of a big deal that they're giving up this player. But talking to other people and hearing some more stories on it, some of this is a little bit of a win. One, he wasn't getting top line minutes, which was a huge issue for him. He was wanting, as you said, $8 million in cash, which is a lot to spend on a winger. Like, let's call a spade a spade. It's a lot to spend on a winger. And all of a sudden, now they have Dubois locked up for $5 million for this year and next. And your 1-2 punch down the middle is looking really strong in a division where that is a strength for a lot of the teams in it. And even though your defense might not be good, you now have strong defensive forwards. You can spread that top six depth around a little bit, and your goaltending is still quite decent. So I kind of see why this trade worked out. We just don't see these kind of trades anymore. They're very hard to kind of compare to anything else, aren't they?
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of like the last one that was like this big, and like I'm sure there's
Weber
been
Subban.
Weber Subban, yeah, but like in
Paul
terms of
Larson,
yeah.
But in terms of like forwards, I'm going back, like maybe I'm sure there's been some since, but it just reminds me of Heatley Hossa. Remember, like they needed like a change of scenery, and both players like excelled in their new spots. So
it's very true. It's very true, and I think that's a huge part of it. Now, some of the interesting parts too. Have you guys heard Wheeler's comments about his regrets? Have you heard any of those?
No.
They asked him if he had any regrets specific about Patrick Laine. He made a comment about like, well, yeah, you think back on it, people have left here. Like, maybe I've done stuff wrong. He's like, we always had a good relationship. But I think part of that, actually, the question itself, I think, comes from the fact that Wheeler had filled up that top spot on the line, right? Mm-hmm. And because of his position there and his demand to play with Scheifele, or his connection with Scheifele, Laine was never going to get top line minutes. He was stuck with a third line center for the longest time in Brian Little, and slowly had started making his way back up to the top. Or like, and he wasn't getting that same type of spot there. And so you got to wonder about in Winnipeg, if that kind of relationship really did a lot to hurt this development with this star and result in him leaving.
Oh, well, he absolutely made it clear that he was unhappy playing with Brian Little. He basically straight out said, I want to play with Mark Scheifele, but didn't get to. They still gave him lots of power play time. They still gave him lots of minutes, but you're right. He never got to be that cornerstone piece that everyone assumed he was going to be when he was drafted, which he should have, because like I said, he hasn't scored 50 goals yet, but I'm assuming that someday he's going to score 50 goals. They don't grow on trees. And it's pretty shocking to see someone of his talent be traded away.
I'm going to stop for a second here just because Adam's texting to come in. So I'm just going to admit him.
Oh, he's frozen now.
And now it's time for Sexy Pose Down with Adam.
Okay, well, we're going to continue on here with our conversation here. But one of the interesting parts here might be that in the end, when this trade gets evaluated, will be on who stays where long term. Because if Laine decides that he's leaving and he goes to another city, then it's a loss for Columbus. If Dubois leaves and goes to another city, then it's a loss for Winnipeg. But it does bring some interesting questions. Though you have a guy who is essentially the top center, even though he's projected as a second line center, coming to Winnipeg. And I guess the question becomes, is there a chance that he could replace Scheifele as the top center over time here?
You hope so. If you're Winnipeg, you hope so, right? Because he's younger. That's the whole point, is like you want that turnover, that growth, the young players pushing the vets. And, that wouldn't be a bad thing. Winnipeg, that means then Dubois is better than Scheifele, and Scheifele just gets moved down, but you get a better player. So Winnipeg certainly hopes so.
It'll be interesting to see how he does away from the Blue Jackets system and what kind of points he can put up, because like Baron, like you said before with his point totals, he averages around 60 points a season, or he did the last couple of seasons. Can he turn into a point per game player if he gets away from that defensive system of the Jackets? We'll have to see.
I'll ask this question. Name his wingers in Columbus. Like, name them. Who would he play with?
Nick Foligno? No. Yeah, Nick Foligno.
That's who I would have gone with, but I don't think he's playing with Nick Foligno. I think
Domi.
Foligno was on the first line, and
wasn't Dubois on the first line? Wasn't he their first line center?
Then maybe he was playing with Foligno and Anderson and Atkinson.
Well, you usually don't play with 3 guys on a line.
Oh, I know. I don't mean Foligno. I'm strictly doing Willie Ways in from now on.
Hey, you know what I just thought? We could always pretend and say to Adam that he's frozen and be like, Adam, you're frozen in the middle of a conversation. And then you know when he's not. And then just like record the reaction and see how it goes.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah. All right, Adams. Well, we've covered most of the big topic there. So do you want to throw any thoughts in about the Laine Dubois trade? How you feel about it? Any thoughts on it?
I do think Columbus won this trade if both players stay and even if Dubois stays in Winnipeg. I think you've got just like a 40-goal scorer as a win, period, out of Laine. Laine's got more upside in that regard, especially as a winger. But Dubois is going to be a solid centerman, and hopefully he doesn't get flaky on the peg like he did in CBJ. I mean, if he wears out his welcome again and he's like, oh, okay, need another change of scenery. I want another place with, a greater stage. Is this guy ever going to be pleased? He probably is. His dad works in the system there. Like, he probably wants to be there, but I don't know, man. Like, the rate that he was playing in Columbus wasn't great in this new season here. And, if you're going to talk the talk, walk the walk, he says this isn't going to impact how I play. It obviously impacted how he played. I don't think he handled that situation as well as, he may have wanted to or said he was going to. I don't know. It was kind of messy. And I hope for Winnipeg's sake he does work hard and he is the player he was there, because I think he's got a higher ceiling, perhaps higher than Scheifele. I don't know. Scheifele's great. So I guess it remains to be seen.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting, though. Like, one thing people point out, though, is that when it comes down to it, that bad shift there or whatever, that he kind of quit there. But it's, you look at his career, that's one bad shift. Mm-hmm. Really, it's bad. Like, let's not call it anything. It's bad, but I mean, you can pull up a ton of bad shifts from guys that still cared. And so I think honestly, it was just his way of saying screw you to certain people. And at the end of the day, I think they both got a fresh start, and I think we're going to see really rejuvenated guys. It's going to be interesting. I do say this though, Patrick Laine, for all his points, he's not playing with a better center than he was in Winnipeg. So there's no way he's got anyone better than Stats.
You don't think Max Domi's better than Brian Little?
I like Max Domi, and I would say that he actually had a decent amount of getting there. It was a good trade-off to give him. I think they gave up on him, Montreal, too early. Mm-hmm. But right now, he's not playing that much better. So I think that's kind of interesting to say there. We see, we should just, now you can cut in. You should just edit in a little picture here of that locked face. If you can, just that face of him just being... And then just keep it on there. All right, we're going to start a new addition here to the podcast. A little bit of Canadiana, a little maple syrup-esque stickiness called, I think we're going to go with the name Northern Exposure. And we're going to have a little bit of a breakdown of the Canadian teams, like a Canadian team check-in on how they are and where things are. And we're going to go with our man Sunjay today. Is going to start with a little bit of a check-in on the Calgary Flames, where they're at, how they're going, and where things are at this point.
Whoa, hold on. I thought we were talking about the Finnish Hockey League. That's why I wear my Finland jersey. We're not talking about Helsinki and other cities in Finland.
Are you also repping Finnish players? Who's on yours?
No, I wish. See, I don't know who to get crested on this. I'm debating between Solani and Kiprasov. So I'm leaning more towards Kiprasov because...
Jesse Puljujärvi.
After that game last night, maybe he will make the Olympic team, so we'll see. Getting back, he had a good game. Getting back to Calgary, so the Flames, they're 2-1-1. Started off with a overtime loss to Winnipeg, and they came out firing, man. That first period against Winnipeg, I was like, wow, this team is much improved from last year. High expectations. Markstrom looked incredible. And then the inconsistency that's plagued the Flames ever since they won the Stanley Cup reared its ugly head, and they played horrible second and third period, and the Jets came back to win that. So that was kind of like a bummer. But then the next game, they played a home and home against Vancouver. They ended up taking both games, and Markstrom looked incredible. This is the goalie that Calgary has needed ever since Mika Kiprusoff left Calgary. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say he will be a top 3 goalie in Flames history by the time he retires. And by the time this contract is up in Calgary, there'll be like debates. It'll be like Vernon, Kiprusoff, and Markstrom. Because this guy, I know it's only been 4 games, but this guy is exactly what Calgary has been looking for and what they've needed ever since. Like, you look at the goalie carousel that Calgary's had. Kari Ramo, Reto Berra. You're talking about Jonas Hiller. You're talking about Brian Elliott. And it's just a laundry list. Cam Talbot, David Rittich, and just a laundry list of goalies that just couldn't grab that brass ring and take it. Markstrom's that guy. He is a workhorse. He's played all 4 games, and he looks really good. And another player that looks really good is Johnny Gaudreau. Coming into the season, there was a lot of question marks because he had 99 points 2 years ago. How dare he get 99 points? There was another player that wore number 99, so you should never even get 99 points.
You should ask permission. That's bullshit.
Yeah. You should have asked Wayne if he could land on 99. And then the next year he dropped down to like 60 points. And this year he's back and he's firing on all cylinders. He's got a point in every game. He's got 5 points in 4 games. And I give him a little slack. I remember another player in Calgary who wore number 12, Jerome McGinley. He came on the scene. He got 96 points or whatever. Won the won the Art Ross Trophy scoring race.
Didn't he tie for something? What was it again? Where he tied a goalie.
Oh, he lost the Hart Trophy to Jose Theodore. That's why I'm still bitter at Montreal media there.
That's what it was. I can't remember.
Garbage. What's Theodore doing these days? I don't know. What's Iginla doing? Getting ready to go into the Hall of Fame. Just saying.
Living in Boston.
Getting interviewed on the news about a snowstorm.
Local Canadian.
And no one knowing who he is.
I'm
from Canada.
He was so nice too, right? Like, just Jerome is just a nice guy. He had a breakout season, and then the very next year, he had a down season in the 60-point range. So it does happen, it's a lot of expectations to go from being a 190-point player, and every team like keys on you. You are the guy, and I think it takes a while to kind of get used to that. And Gaudreau is showing that last season was more of the anomaly, and hopefully more of the 99-point Gaudreau is going to be this year. And going back, and so then they had one game against the Leafs. That was not a great effort. I would say by the fourth line of Calgary, specifically Lucic had a couple moments there. He took a couple stupid penalties, and Lucic knows better. He was really good in the playoffs for Calgary. And this season, it's a slow start. But you know what? I think Lucic he's a little bit older. He'll need a little bit more time to get up to speed. He had a slow start last year. They don't really need him to come out this year early on. But in the playoffs, if he could make an appearance again like he did last year, that would be great. And speaking of Lucic, a lot of fans in Toronto are upset at this guy over here. Where is it? Matthew Tkachuk, for what happened at the end of the game with goaltender Jack Campbell. And a lot of fans are saying, oh, it should be suspension, and there's no suspension. There was no penalty. And then they're saying, oh, Wayne Simmons is going to, take things into his own hands, and he's going to punch his face in next time they play, which is tomorrow. And I'm saying, you know what? There's a reason why you bring in Milan Lucic. He's the heavyweight champion of the NHL. And that's because Matthew Tkachuk shouldn't have to fight. If Wayne Simmons wants to fight, tomorrow, and if the Leafs feel like they need retribution for the horrible things Matthew Tkachuk did last game, that shouldn't be up to Tkachuk to answer the bell. That should be Milan Lucic stepping in and protecting his star players. That's why he's getting paid $5 million. He's got to
bell, Chucky. Answer the bell.
He doesn't have to, man. When you're a top line player like that, you don't need to fight, and you have players like Lucic on your roster. Let him fight. because you don't want to lose Tkachuk to the season for breaking a hand in a fight or something, right? So
this is kind of going off topic, but I never understood that. The whole argument about fighting was that they could police themselves. But the person who actually commits the crime never ends up actually doing the fighting. It's one guy's tough guy against their tough guy. It has nothing to do with the actual person they're upset about. So it never made sense to me.
Not always. I think the thing is you got to go back. Like it's older times, and while you say it's true, like there's stories where guys policed it where they would hit a star really hard and then be like, I'm actually going to beat the crap out of your star player, or I'm going to beat the crap out of you if you do that again. Right. And guys didn't. And I'll even give you an example with Tkachuk. Lucic sat on him and just pushed in on his head. Like, he never fought him. He never did anything, but it was a deterrent being like, if I decide to, you're going to lose this, right? So, but you're right. Like, it's never like those guys fight. But at different times, I do wonder if like the fan base knowledge around how players think is very different from actually how players feel. Because the whole media thing around Tkachuk and Kassian last time was, well, he doesn't have to fight, blah, 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 blah. But he went out there and fought. So why did he do it if he didn't have to? And media backed him on it. Well, because probably in his room with his guys, they were like, yeah, fight him. You need to fight him. Mm-hmm. Just saying. Why else would you do it then?
Yeah, he probably won a lot of players over, right, in the Calgary dressing room, because Kassian is a heavyweight, right? And Tkachuk's more of like a middleweight. So I think most people think Kassian's a middleweight now too, but yeah. I mean, not in today's NHL. Kassian's a big boy. There's not a lot of like enforcers out there. Like Kassian would be like in the top echelon of fighters, I would say. You think so? What do you feel about the defense this year? Yeah, that's fair. What do you feel about the defense this year, Sunjay? To be honest, I've been pleasantly surprised with Chris Tanev. Coming in, again, it's a thing where you don't watch a player all the time. You just look at the stats. That's the first thing you look at, and you go, okay, doesn't put up a ton of goals, doesn't put up a lot of points. We're losing TJ Brody, bringing in Chris Tanev. That's a net negative for Calgary. But if you look at the way he plays the way I hoped Hamonic would have played when he was brought into Calgary. This is a hard-nosed defenseman who blocks shots a ton. He's great on the penalty kill, and he can play top 4 minutes. He is excellent. Like, I've been really impressed with him. And also with Anderson. He's a young defenseman that's coming up, and he's now anchoring the number 1 power play on Calgary. And he's been terrific. He's averaging over 20 minutes a night. And as Giordano gets a little bit older, that's going to take some of the strain off him, because last year, in my opinion, Giordano had a bit of a down year. Coming off that Norris Trophy, maybe expectations were a little too high. But I think he just played a ton. And as he gets older, he can't be playing 25 minutes, 22 minutes a night like he used to. So seeing the emergence of Anderson and Hanifin and Valimaki, like the Flames have a good young D-core. Then you also sprinkle in the veterans like Tanev and Giordano to kind of mentor those young players. So all in all, I've been happy with the defense, to be honest with you. I know like they've only played 4 games, but I would say really my only negative would be probably just like the fourth line is just still finding its way. But, if that's your biggest gripe on a team, you're doing something right? Like they played the least amount of minutes. So, I mean, they're 2-1-1. It's hard to know too, because they've only played 3 teams. So it's hard to know, but I've been pretty impressed with Calgary this year. Yeah, they and Jeff Ward has done it. I think he's done a terrific job with that team. So,
you're going to find out soon how good they are. I think they're playing like 8 games in 14 days or something like that in this next stretch here. So we'll find out how good they really are.
Very weird, because they got that like 5-day. Yeah, which you could think it's like they get to practice some, but they looked rusty against Toronto. Coming in that first period, passes were kind of missing, shots were off. It was a little bit. You could tell like the rust had hit them, and it's a good. Some ways it's good because then you get to practice like your breakouts, your power plays, but you can't simulate that game shape, that game experience, right? Yeah, I think that's fair. But I do think like practice is a big part of it. Like most teams, I think you're looking at some choppiness because guys aren't getting it. And the Flames do have that. Like they did get that chance to practice, but I think you're right. It's how do you simulate games? And people are dealing with the fact that crowds aren't there. You were talking about Lucic. You can't tell me he doesn't feed off of a crowd, right? Yeah. Like that's something that's going to be hard for him, I think, too, this season. And lots of guys, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things we talked about doing this season was doing a little bit of an impressive and disappointment stance from how things essentially have changed on your team. So new players come in, new players come in, and old players go out, but new players come in. And as people come and leave and so forth, they have impacts on your team. Some are really good and some are hella negative. Now, initially, we weren't sure if Sunjay was going to be able to make it, but he's a little champ, and so he's there. He just wants to get his Tkachuk comments in for later in the show. So we figured he's like, I can't let Chucky not get represented by 2 Oiler fans and a Leaf fan. It'd be like,
the friendship
like that court
continues.
case. Yeah, you'd be like that court case where it's just like, you're like, well, we got your client covered in blood, and you're like, he cuts meat. He likes meat.
Yeah.
It's paint. What do you
If
know?
the stick does not fit, you must acquit.
Exactly. There you go. But the way it's going to work is we're going to bust through some different teams. Now, there's certain ones assigned for each of us, and none have been assigned to Sunjay. So we'll give him a throw in here and there, and he can kind of
give him his Calgary.
Yeah, well, he already just did his big love letter to them, but we'll do that.
They're perfect in every way, and anything you say to the contrary is untrue.
So looking at new people that came in and out there, Sunjay and Calgary specifically, who came in and out, who's been impressive so far for you, and who's disappointed you?
Impressive so far. I would go with Tanev. Markstrom, I kind of was expecting him to do really well, and Tanev, I've been pleasantly surprised with how he's played. Disappointment. You know what? I'm gonna go with. It's hard to say. I'm gonna go with what's his name? I'm gonna go with Ville Laine. He was brought in to kind of anchor that second line, play with Gaudreau and Monahan, and he just hasn't really clicked with them. But it's still early. But I would say Laine, but that's early, but there's still time to turn it around.
Right. Next is me with Edmonton Oilers. So I'm going to say that my impressive addition to the team, if you can count him as a new addition right now, is going to be Jesse Puljujärvi. Has done really well. He's starting to shine a bit. He's starting to step into that body, hit, move well. He's not really new, but he hasn't been here the last 2 years. So he is new in the sense that he hasn't been with the team in a while here. And the player that was left and the player that came back are very different. And after he left, I think it was very hard to think he was going to really come back and ever fit in. And he's showing signs that he is. The other one I'll state is Slater Cuckoo. And I was actually quite happy that this signing got made. It sounded like it was talks between Hutton, Hamonic, and Slater Cuckoo. And after watching the play-in round, he was very noticeable against the Edmonton Oilers. And in fact, coming in has been very noticeable. For disappointment, I think it's straight up easily going to have to be Tyson Barrie right now. As someone who's brought in to work the power play and be someone there as a specialist, he's not shooting the puck. He's not making crisp passes. He looks a little disjointed and out there. Like you said, Sunjay, early on, hard to tell. But at this stage, I mean, at some point you got to click or it's not worth it. And I'm also going to say that the other one that's kind of been a little bit disappointing coming in has to be Kyle Turris. If you look at those third line, he was there to take over from Riley Sheehan, who was bleeding goals and putting the team in a bad spot. And right now, Kyle Turris is bleeding goals. He scored a goal and still ended up -2 on the night. So in a 3-goal game, that means that he basically was on for every goal against. And Tyson Barrie is also guilty of that. So those 2 additions have been terrible, like really terrible. And the other 2 additions have been really good. Ryan, you're doing, I believe you have...
Montreal Canadiens.
You have the Canadiens. Yeah.
Up next. So I'll go best performing Tyler Toffoli. So this is a team that needed some goal scoring punch. They had great possession numbers last year, and lots of scoring chances and shots, but they just couldn't get any in. And Toffoli's giving that to them right now. He's tied for the league lead in goals. He's top 10 in points. And that third line with him and Kotkaniemi and Armia is dominant. I'd say they're the best third line in the entire Canadian division right now. Most disappointing. That's pretty tough. The Habs are actually playing really, really good right now, and I hate that, but they're playing really good. If I had to pick someone twisting my arm, I guess I'll go with Joel Edmondson. He and Petrie, their possession numbers are pretty bad, and they've given up a lot of scoring chances. But but I mean, that's still pretty nitpicky. Like, he's still a positive plus minus. He's generating scoring chances. He's drawing penalties. He protects the puck well, hits, block shots. I think they're pretty happy with him, but if I had to pick someone, I guess I would go with him just because of the bad possession stats.
Fair enough. Adam, Ottawa.
We're going to look at some of the positives there in Tim Stützle. Has been playing well. Disappointment with that, though, comes his being out of the lineup. I think they suffer from that. Another is Brady Tkachuk and his continued success as a Ottawa Senator. He's always on par. He's always good. He's always creating offense. They're a fast team. They just really can't string together a win. And that's my biggest disappointment, is the team ability to clam up the defense enough so they could squeeze a win out. So, I haven't watched too many Ottawa games this year, but, I see their scoring. They just need to be able to play defense and come together as a team to shore up the scoring against.
Ryan, you're fine. Ryan, Toronto
Maple Leafs. So I don't think he's the worst of the new additions, but he's the guy that I was most excited about for him coming in. So he's the most I am disappointed in, and that's TJ Brody. I think he's had some really good games, but he's been very inconsistent, both him and Morgan Riley together. And they're just allowing too many goals when they're on the ice, too many shots against, too many scoring chances. And I was really looking forward to some of the defensive acumen he would bring to this team and help Riley, allow Riley to jump up in the play and cover for him. But it's just not quite fitting yet. It's still early. I'm hoping that they're still learning how to play with each other and how to play within Toronto's system. So hopefully he'll turn out to be the player that I was hoping he would be for the Leafs. Best performing, I'll go with Jimmy Vesey. He only has 2 goals right now, but he actually doesn't get a lot of ice time. He's 9th in forwards on time on ice per game. So those 2 goals are pretty good for the amount of time he's actually playing. And it provides Toronto with a bit of scoring depth, which really they don't have a lot of throughout their lineup. Some good possession stats. He protects the puck well. He draws penalties, and he helps out on the penalty kill. So I've been pretty impressed with him so far.
Adam, Vancouver. Sorry, Sunjay. No, you go ahead.
Ryan, it's interesting you bring up TJ Brody. I know Flames fans at the beginning of last year were like, okay, this is the last year of his contract. It's not working out anymore. It'd be okay if he walks away. And then by the end of the year, and then after the playoffs, he turned a switch. I don't know what it was, but he just started playing so much better, more confidence, better skating, better shooting, that by the time they got eliminated by Dallas, all the Flames fans were saying TJ Brody is a must resign.
Right.
So it could just be like a slow start like last year.
That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, because he definitely has it in him. And
there's been flashes. He's had some really good games, but just overall, it just hasn't quite gelled really well yet with Riley.
Mm-hmm. I'm hoping he gets there, just not against Calgary.
Now, in terms of Vancouver, I'm going to start off with the biggest disappointment, which has got to be Elias Peterson. He has not shown up.
These are new
additions to the team.
New additions to the team, not people who played there last year.
Sorry, it's been a long day. New additions.
I'll
start with my good. My good is Nils Hoglander. He has been a solid player for them, brings some energy in to the lineup that was needed there before, some urgency. He's been a solid mainstay in their top 6 as a rookie, and he's become very dependable for them. Now, my most disappointing addition would probably be right now Braden Holtby and that goalie tandem they have. It just has not gotten done for them. Holtby and Demko have not been able to do it. Now, I don't think it's a Canucks team we've seen over the past couple of years, so that tends to stop. So their team just does not look the same. It doesn't look good. I think they lost a bunch of key pieces. Now, the departure that's really hurting them is Markstrom. And I'd read a tweet earlier this week that stated that Elias Peterson, whenever he was struggling, his guy that he would go to would be Markstrom. So I think he's missing that. And with his struggles, he's really trying to get through that, and for someone that he always leaned on that was a leader on that team, it's just not there. So he's trying to work through that maybe alone, or trying to find another person to lean on. So they've got some struggles they need to work through. Another addition that I think is positive has been Nate Schmidt. I think that guy is a team guy. He can mold a group together, bring them together. He's been through it in Vegas. I'm thinking he might be able to bring some of that leadership to Vancouver. I think he's played pretty well for them, but it remains to be seen how well they're going to pull out. I mean, it has been just 1 week in the season, so I guess we'll see how they pull out of it.
All right, we're going to end up here with the Winnipeg Jets. Now, here's the truth is when it goes to things that have been surprisingly well, I think Stastny's hasn't been yet, but he's trending upwards. Like, he's looking good. I just think he started a little bit slower than people would have expected him. But my addition that's really stood out this year is going to have to be Logan Stanley. So this is a guy that was drafted. He's a large defenseman. He's a big guy. And his skating prior to this, like, he was going to look like someone who was, if lucky, going to be a career AHLer, just based on how things were going. And something occurred here in this last little bit where he has changed things. He's gotten better. And like, they kind of have this mentality where, like, my favorite part of Winnipeg for the last couple of years has been Byfuglien and that attitude and that swagger and that me versus two guys. And honestly, Stanley's starting, he's not there. He's not even close to there. But he's able to do that same thing, which is to grab two guys, have somebody grab him and not shake him at all, because this is a big guy. This is a strong guy. And I think that potential, that change has been absolutely a win for the Winnipeg Jets, who's a team that does not have a good defense at the end of the day. So that's a win there. Like I said, Paul Stastny, I think, is good. And it looks like he's going to be moving to winger now. So that's going to be an interesting change to see how that one goes. But I know he was brought in as a second-line center to help Laine, to kind of, like, because they reignite some of that chemistry, take some of that workload off of Scheifele. As far as new additions, like, really disappointing the team, I don't have a lot. So I'm going to go with Dubois for having to wait 14 days to get himself in.
Maybe 7 if they get their requests accepted.
It's true. And it's not his fault. Like, that's the worst part. But I mean, honestly, like, and maybe this is me, but I didn't have a lot of high expectations given their offseason. Like, go through the list of guys that they brought in. It is a dog's breakfast of people. Like, and you're like, oh yeah, huh, okay, cool. This guy, is he even playing? I don't know. Oh, sweet. Like, it's interesting. So I really think, like, right now, just a little bit of that start for Stastny and the fact that they got to wait for Dubois are probably the two biggest disappointments with additions. And they're so happy with Dubois that there's no way that that's even a disappointment. So those are my picks for that one. Sunjay, you only got to say for one. So out of any of the teams, who's somebody that stood out for you that you're like, that was a great ad? And then who's someone you were like, way to bomb it?
Who was a great ad? And I'm trying to think of, like, players that swap teams now at the off season, and I'm drawing a blank here. Way to put me on the spot, Baron.
Trifoli.
Want to throw in Josh Anderson, maybe, or?
Oh yeah, like, there's a great addition.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna hand it to Montreal, and I did not have high expectations for them. You can check out our predictions episode, but Josh Anderson. He's traded for Max Domi, and I was like, okay, this Domi kid's a stud. Why are you trading him? Anderson's really, like, come on, and he's really brought a certain swagger to Montreal, and he's performing well, and the whole team's doing well. So hats off to him. Like, it's just.
Although he had a really hot start to the season, but he hasn't really gotten a lot of points the last few games. I think he got like 2 or 3 points the first couple of games and, like, nothing really after that, but he has looked good overall.
Well, it's like where Toffoli's almost picked up where he left off.
Yeah.
Right? Anderson stopped producing. Toffoli just broke out.
But not that Max Domi has done a whole bunch in Columbus, so.
Yeah.
3 minutes of ice time you know?
Yeah.
But it's interesting too with Max Domi. Like, I still think that kid, like, people are giving up on him very early. Like this, he's got good pedigree. I think he has a high ceiling. Just because it hasn't worked yet doesn't mean it will. Anderson came off a 1-goal season, right? I mean, so none of us had high expectations of him. And seeing a guy who plays in that market, you just don't ever hear anything. Like, how do you know much about Anderson unless you're really following? Everyone wanted him, and they had a high asking price. They really did.
Well, and you wait for Domi to hook up with Laine, and we'll see. I bet you those points start spiking. I bet.
I hope they do, because I think when you watch a guy who can legitimately score 40 goals just bombing it from the point, you're going to be like, wow. And I do think
Domi's a good setup man, right? So hopefully they gel well.
Yeah, well, hopefully he's a good setup man, but we'll see.
We'll
find out. He's got to play the way Torts wants.
Yeah.
Suffer some.
They won't have a whole lot of help on offense, so
they don't have a whole lot of help anyways. You think Jack Roslovic's going to step in? He's like projected at best to be a third line center. Like, if you look at his stats, like those cards people do.
That's probably what he'll be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a great thing. So we'll see from that.
The bad thing with Columbus is that Laine sells tickets. Like, that guy is a superstar, and unfortunately, with no fans being in attendance to games, it won't benefit him this year. But next year, you know, that's a guy that's going to put butts in the seat, much like a Timo Solani or Pavel Bure.
You also have to sign him, and you're going to pay a pretty penny for that, I think. I really do.
Yeah.
And good for him.
But he's a restricted free agent, so you have, like, Columbus will have ownership of his rights, and they'll have, you know, a bit of leverage there because of that.
I will add one more player that is a huge success in his new team, Bobby Ryan. Huge success there. Coming off of everything that was going on with him personally, and him being able to defeat all his demons and come back and play, and then he got a hat trick his first game back. And this was a player that I was like, this guy should be like well sought after. And he signs with Detroit. I don't know if, you know, it's a hometown kind of thing. I know he's American, so maybe he wanted to play in the U.S.
He is from all over, that guy. They were hiding. Like, his family was in hiding as they moved across the U.S. Like,
oh yeah, that's right. Just a weird situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, but he is lighting it up with Detroit. I mean, there's not a lot to get excited with Detroit, but he is one. He is looking terrific. I think he's making a push to make that U.S. Olympic team next year.
I hope he does well. I mean, he's an easy guy to cheer for. I think he's someone that we've watched him struggle. He came back and did well, and I am surprised that Ottawa cut their ties, but that's just the way it goes.
Well, he didn't produce for Ottawa his whole time there, right? And he was the most expensive contract on the roster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to keep him on, but it is a great story with Bobby Ryan.
Oh,
what do you think about what do you think about the addition of Matt Murray right now in Ottawa? He is rocking a .88 save percentage with 3.79 goals against average. Like, is this
his
typical
fault?
Matt Murray?
That's what I was going to say. Is it his fault?
Well, he was under a better defense in Pittsburgh, and I didn't remember his numbers being amazing there either.
Yeah.
He's had a rough few years. Yeah. But it's hard to know because Ottawa's defense is just so bad.
Yeah.
That
but
it'd be tough for any. Although you look at Hellebuck, he's playing in front of or behind a bad defense too, and he's still putting up great numbers. So
his save percentage last year was .899. He's .880 right now, and it's early, but I mean, that's not great. Not on a good team, not on any team, really, is it?
No.
Unless it's the 80s, it's not great.
But it's not like Tristan Jarry's doing a whole lot better either.
Oh, yeah.
My fantasy stud goaltender. Yeah, don't talk about him.
I got rid of him.
Well, Pittsburgh's trying to come back on now. I don't know how Tristan Jarry's done since the last time we did this podcast.
He's won the last two. No, he won the last two, Jarry.
Did he? Yeah.
Yep. We got a couple more things. We're already getting kind of late in this episode. We're probably roughly almost around 50 minutes or so in it right now as it is. We'll just talk about some big things around the NHL and kind of quickly. But what do you think about the COVID party that occurred in Washington? So we have Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Samsonov, or is it Samsonov? And Orlov.
Yeah, it is.
That are currently in what's the word here?
Quarantine.
Purgatory. Yeah, quarantine. I guess that's what it's actually called. So they're in quarantine essentially for violating rules. What is this? Like, what do you say? Like, I know Ovechkin's wife put out a post saying it was kind of an anti-Russian statement by the league. Where does this sit with you guys? Go ahead, Adam.
Well, I don't know if it's an anti-Russian thing for the league. There's rules in place where you can't be hanging out in other players' hotel rooms without a mask on. Like, it's just generally a rule. I know it's kind of wonky that they can be in the locker room without them on and on the ice with them, but like it's the way that the league has it set up. And you need to be careful with that because there's other people that come into those rooms, right? You need to keep the mask on. It's not that hard. Just like, lead by example. Put the mask on. Watch the fight with the mask on if you're going to be with other people in a room.
And there's a meeting room for all the players to be able to get together and hang out. So why not do it there?
Yeah, and I understand like her frustration because we all live that frustration right now, right? But at the same time, we have guidelines, we have rules that we all need to abide by in a pandemic. And if they're not doing that, they're putting their team at risk as well for getting it. So now they have to quarantine. Otherwise, it's another postponed batch of games that other teams have to start to try to rejuggle, which might not really be realistic to try to fit that puzzle together.
Should the NHL postpone them, or should they punish Washington by saying you guys weren't following the rules? You got to play without these 4 players.
I don't think. Are they postponing Washington's games? I didn't think so.
No, they're not.
Those games are going. Those games are
They're going.
Okay.
They're going, but I think that's something that they run the risk of if they don't keep those guys out of the lineup, right? So they're doing their due diligence.
Yep.
And
it does make a big problem if somebody gets sick, anybody gets sick. That doesn't just shut down your team. Look what's happened with Dallas Stars now. They've had an explosive reemergence here, more than I ever would have thought, given how last year went. But honestly, how many games got deferred because of that have to be rescheduled now, right? Like, it does have it's not like the NFL where it's 1 game a week. It's a large trickle-down effect here if a team gets shut down from COVID.
Isn't it crazy that Dallas is one of the teams allowing fans in the building when they've had all?
It's Texas. It's Texas.
Yeah.
It's crazy though to me. Like, it's nuts. You have
Arizona has
point
fans.
when they'll have to forfeit. Be like, look, we're giving you guys. If it's come out that they've broken protocol, should the Stars have to forfeit if they've been found and they've rescheduled like 10-15 games, for example?
See, it's so hard to prove it, right? How do you prove that someone's broken protocol? That's how you got sick. How do you know how someone's got sick? So if you go to a club, then bam, you're caught, right? Like you are. But if you just get sick because your wife went and got groceries and she got sick,
what can you do?
Like, you're going to punish that team?
Yeah.
And then you came to the rink because you didn't notice, you didn't smell anything that day?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough, but it's interesting too. Like,
leaves a non-taste in your mouth.
But no, it's weird though. Like, look at the NHL coaches; they're all wearing cloth masks. Essentially, if you're wearing a surgical mask, like a triple layer surgical mask, and you are around someone who's sick, you are not considered a close contact. So it's interesting to me that the NHL doesn't have even that implemented amongst their players. Why aren't they just wearing like straight up surgical masks? And then if a player is sick, the rest of your team's still good to go, like realistically.
Because they don't look as cool.
You can get custom made ones in the NHL.
I'm just kidding.
Billion-dollar industry. We're going to talk about this, and I think it's a good one to kind of hit up on. We took a little longer on some of the other segments, and that's fine. But we want to talk about the injury bug that hit Toronto and give Sunjay a chance to rep his boy and Pilon a chance to rebuttal it. So right now, Toronto's facing a bit of an injury situation where they lost Joe Thornton due to a soft hit in his old man ribs, where he was injured by essentially a...
Where do those Edmonton Oilers get off hitting a senior citizen? I hope you're proud of the team you cheer for.
Josh Archibald bumped into him.
Old man Thornton just trying to get his exercise to stay healthy and fit and feeling young, and you have to go and smash some guy. Next, they're going to be hitting some old man or old woman crossing the street. That's what you'll see next.
There's no room in the game for this kind of behavior, Edmonton.
You put a senior citizen in like a high traffic area and you're surprised he gets hit. I just don't understand it. So that was the first one. Then they lost Matthews to some reason against the Oilers, but then he actually played quite well. They played quite well without him, actually. Their record without Matthews is fairly impressive, to be honest with you. Everyone can say what they want with the Oilers not taking advantage, but they have like a winning record without Matthews in the lineup.
You got to look at their lineup, though, too, and their lineup is pretty stacked without him. You still have Marner, you still have Tavares, you still have Nylander, you still have Morgan Riley, you still have Anderson and Campbell and net. Like, you've got a pretty deep lineup.
Unless you look at Morgan Riley's numbers this year, they have not been good. But then you finally hear you have Campbell getting injured. Now, Sunjay, you know what? Now you've talked enough on this. Pilon, explain what happened with Jack Campbell and how he remained injured.
You're going to have to go to Sunjay because I actually did not end up seeing it. I turned off the game once it was done. So
I'll tell you how he got injured. Flames came in, took a shot. Jack Campbell went down, tried to stop it, pulled something when he went down. There wasn't a Flames player around him. No, I'm serious. Like, there wasn't
That's
a
true.
Flames
That is true.
And then he was kind of limping for the last 3 minutes of the game. And credit to him for getting it out. Like, that is impressive. He understood he would be putting the other goalie in a tough position to come in at that close of a time to the end. So, my hat is on, but it would be off for Jack Campbell. That's a hell of a performance. But the kerfuffle or the upsettedness occurs with about 30 seconds to go when there's a scramble in front of the net. Matthew Tkachuk is battling for the puck. The team's down by a goal. So 30 seconds to go. The puck is kind of like at the edge of the crease, outside the crease, in the crease. It's not covered, and he's trying to get it in. Something happens, I haven't seen, you can watch it in super slow motion and say he does an atomic knee drop on Jack Campbell.
Yeah,
in my opinion, it was more of a battle. He falls down and he lands on Jack Campbell's back.
Oh, so this happened during play?
That's what you say. I thought it happened.
You
thought it occurred after the game.
That's what I thought. I heard you guys say.
It's suspect. He brings his.
It's literally on the news.
Lands on the back of his neck.
Well, because he was stretched out trying to cover the puck, and Tkachuk was there. He was just trying to score a goal, man.
Well, I'll say I didn't think anything of it when I saw it because obviously I didn't pay any attention to it. I did see a quote from Keefe who said it was a non-issue, so I think it's getting a little overblown.
Yeah,
Jack Campbell also made a comment to it.
I think because it's Tkachuk and because people can slow it down to super slow motion and be like, you could see it, right? Like, in 1/64th of a second, he could have done this. You know what I mean? And in my opinion, it's like, yeah, you slow it down, it looks way worse. But if you play it at regular speed, I think it's a non-issue. I mean, of course, I think it's a non-issue. I'm pretty biased. But honestly, if that happened to Markstrom, I would be like, okay, he was trying to get it. I'd be mad that Markstrom got hurt, and that's totally understandable. If he got hurt or that he got touched, I would be mad at that. But the act itself, man, I watched Corey Perry do way worse to the Flames goalies for years, and nothing was called. Okay, I saw Ryan Kessler do way worse.
Oh yeah,
I've seen it for years. So, in my opinion.
Well, Adam, you're a little more fired up about this than Pilon because he doesn't even watch his own team.
I'm watching it right now to see what we're all talking about here.
So, what are your thoughts?
Oh my God, that's nothing.
But Adam, you thought it was a dirty play?
I thought it was a bit dirty. I looked at it again a couple times today, and because I was like, maybe he was checked into the guy. And granted, he probably could have lost his balance and was checked into Campbell while he was down. But at the same time, he did have the ability to fall to the side. He could have fallen off to the side as opposed to directly on him with his knees. So I think in that regard, it was kind of a dirty play.
But
I don't know. I just watched it. Okay. Nah, I don't think it's anything.
So I think
it'd be tough to go to the side,
points.
right? Because then you don't really know. What if he tried to go to the side and he got more of the head or neck, right? It's such a split-second play, in my opinion, that I don't think it was anything egregious or intent to injure.
Whether his reputation is in the media is earned or not, he has the reputation. And the reputation is that he's dirty and causes trouble. Whether you feel it's true or not.
That's fair, man.
If he didn't have this
100%
reputation,
fair.
If he didn't have the reputation, he would not have people go at him. And I think that's the truth. So whether you think it's dirty or not, it's literally it's whatever he's branded as. That's why this has become such a big deal. And the truth is all it does is serve to make this rivalry stronger. And I do hope that it is a strong rivalry. Because I think that honestly, the way it's going to go, the more these teams have to face Tkachuk game after game after game, the more they're going to get livid and the more stuff you're going to see. Because the truth is, the guy is like probably more skilled at pissing people off than Corey Perry is.
Or Brad Marchand.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like Brad Marchand to me is a fine player because I never have to play against him. Like not me personally, I don't play against anybody, but like my team never has to play against him. Right. I play against him like twice a year, and you're like, oh, whatever, right? But people out east hate him, right? Like Pilon ripped up all of that Bruins gear he bought. I hate you guys. We're gonna win a playoff series, but like, to me, I never see the guy. Never does anything. Yeah. Kessler though, hate Kessler. Understand why, right? So, and I think that's a big part of it. The Canada itself is going to get a good taste of Matthew Tkachuk here. And if you think people think he's dirty now or don't like him now, wait, you're 1 game in, 2 games in.
Yeah.
It's going to get crazy.
Well, I saw a stat that since he joined the league, he's been the best at drawing penalties, even better than McDavid, which is crazy because McDavid is crazy fast. And
you're right.
So you'd think, just looking at the players, Tkachuk is slow as molasses. But it's because he can get under your skin, he can poke at you, he can prod at you, that he's causing, and it's working. Flames getting power plays from it. So he has no reason to stop. He's not getting called on the penalties. He's not getting suspended. And he's giving the Flames power plays, which are helping them, improving their chances of winning a game. So why would he stop it?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's basically going to wrap us up here for this week. We have a couple more topics, but I think we can
Sanjay, you have to show us all what you bought.
Yes, that's right. So,
and thank you with that. This has been an episode of.
Well, if you
and I just muted Sunjay. So he muted Sunjay. He doesn't even know that he's muted. Like he's sitting there talking. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll unmute you. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm trying to unmute you. There you go.
I had to confirm. So last time we had a bet that Baron had thought, that guy over there, I always get it wrong, Matthew Tkachuk. One of these days I'll get it right. It was drafted 5th overall, and I said 6th overall, and we made a bet, and Baron is so embarrassed that he left the chat.
Yeah.
Now he's back.
Basically what I did.
And so I was walking through Walmart the other day, and I was like, I have this $10 burning a hole in my pocket. And I really wanted to get something, to really commemorate Matthew Tkachuk and like stuff he did for Zach Kassian last year, and just to really remember him and that rivalry that he reignited. And I saw this movie, and it was like the perfect movie, and it was the perfect title. And it's called Unhinged. And that's kind of the way Zach Kassian was that last year after getting hit by Matthew Tkachuk.
You're going to get someone kick you with a skate one day, and you're going to think about all the things you said.
That was dirty. Okay. But Matthew Tkachuk, Zach Kassian was unhinged at the end of that game against Matthew Tkachuk. And so that's a perfect $10 to spend. So thank you, Baron. Every time I watch this movie and Russell Crowe getting road rage,
are you actually going to watch that movie, Sunjay, or is it going up on your shelf of all your unwatched movies?
Sanjay, how many movies do you have, Sanjay? There's no way you've watched all of them. Like, there's just no way.
No.
So you're going to completely forget about it?
They're all movies, all Blu-rays, DVDs, 4Ks, all back there. Have I watched them all? No. Okay. Will I eventually? Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Unhinged is good. Unhinged is good.
All right. Well, Adam's got 1 vote for that. I should have just put Cassian's face.
I've never seen it, but I love the movie just because you bought it with Baron's $10.
I'm happy.
Is terrifying in it. Terrifying.
I'm just happy that you didn't spend Joanna's money on anything for once. So if that's the bullet that I have to take, then
I just want to keep making bets with you, Baron. Let's just keep making bets. And
You've won 1. We've made 1. Your percentage is 100.
I'm 1 for 1, baby.
You can become 100. You can stay 100, but eventually it's going to come down.
I don't know. You're going to make some sort of bet with me.
And actually, Sunjay won the guess as to whose contract were we talking about? Someone's contract we were talking about.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Sanjay won that too.
Yeah.
$6.3 million.
Who did he pick to finish the division first overall?
Who? Sunjay?
Wait, how did I not point the other way?
You picked Toronto.
Yeah, I picked Toronto.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you picked Calgary.
No, man.
No, he's a smart guy. He's a smart man.
It's weird for you as a homer to not homer. I don't know. It's interesting. All right. Well, with that fun ending, we'll let this one go. This is an episode of Delayed Offside. Like, subscribe, click, follow online. There's other videos being posted. Check them out.
Check out Willie's weigh-ins.
Yeah,
After every
I thought
Oilers
it
game,
was-
they're good, man. I like them.
I thought it was Little Willie's.
Yeah, no.
Was it
Well,
Little
I was going to
Willie's-
ask you how you guys.
Little Willie's Wonderings. I think that's what was supposed to be called. Ryan, you control the channel. Just edit a different name.
Actually,
And put that
Wanderings with
picture-
Willie would be good because you just walk all around your house, man.
I get
I know.
dizzy,
Those
man.
videos.
Does that count as like my cardio? Like I feel like if I'm watching you walk, that still counts as me walking, right?
Yeah, I feel like I should tie you guys in sometimes and be like, "Oh, Baron, oh, Sunjay."
Just do guest appearances.
Just get you guys to do some quick
hard in
little
a
videos.
pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
They've been
yeah,
fun.
you're in
They've been so much fun to
outside
do.
my house.
Yeah, so much fun to do. So much fun to edit. Like, they've been a blast. But I just want to know like what you guys actually think of them.
No, they're good, man. I like them.
I think they're fun.
Okay,
They're
good.
awesome, man. Keep them up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, with that, I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sunjay.
This is Delayed Offside. See you next week.